At this time, I will call to order the Stillwater Economic Development Authority meeting for February 26, 2024. On the consent docket, we have regular meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve consent docket.
Second.
With a motion and a second to approve consent, please vote. With a vote of 4-0, the consent docket's approved. Under general orders, we have consider a recommendation from the Stillwater Reinvestment Plan Implementation Policy Committee regarding an application by Progressive Development. Mr. Moore.
Yes, good evening, trustees. Brady Moore, Deputy City Manager, here to present or to set up the item that is before you, which is the Empire Slice House. The developer is Progressive Development Corp., as you just read, and the address is 116 West 10th Avenue. Some of the quick details on the project: the total hard construction cost for this project is $1.4 million, which brings the total development cost to $2.2 million. The amount of assistance requested by the developer was $450,000. And I'll now invite the developer, Corey Williams, up to talk to you about the project and answer any questions that you have.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, councilors, thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm like a bad penny. I just kind of keep turning back up. But it has been a little while, so I try to space it out.
We're just glad you made it this time.
I appreciate that. My apologies for not last time. I haven't left town in so long I can't hardly remember, but I did leave on the one time that I had something I needed to be here for. So my apologies. I am excited about the project that's before you. You've likely seen the mess that's being made next door to Stone Cloud. And Empire Slice House is, I think, going to be a wonderful addition to the city. I think it'll be a wonderful addition to that 10th Street corridor down there that I made no secret of it. Part of my overall goal is to pull downtown further south and to widen it out a little bit so that we don't have such a pencil that we've had previously. I think we've had 2 blocks of hyper vibrancy and the rest just kind of existed. And so part of doing that is initially with Stone Cloud, which I'm happy to say has remitted $154,000 in sales tax from a building that was nothing in the mayor and I's lifetime. So that's kind of fun and cool, and let you know that the investments that are being made are coming back to us. As somebody who is intimately involved in remitting sales tax on behalf of Hatch, I can tell you that those checks are also healthy. So, and we're glad to do it. I guess it's probably easier to open it up for questions if you have that. She is going to, so she has 2 concepts in this genre, real quick: Empire Slice House and Empire Slice Shop. Empire Slice Shop is more of a counter service, small scale development, and because of what we were able to offer, both for pricing and for where we were going to put it, she went with the Slice House concept. So it's a full service restaurant, full bar, and very, very recently we agreed to terms on her taking that entire yard next door to Stone Cloud. This project has gone through multiple iterations, and the lease is still not actually completely inked despite all the construction that's going on over there. And originally I'd reserved 30 feet of the west 30 foot of that yard for future development and community space. I really wanted to put AstroTurf out there and have some pop-up domes and different things that people could kind of use it for. Stone Cloud is not well situated in the backyard for yoga, so we were going to put a place out there that was flat enough for some yoga. But she has asked to use all of it, and we've come to terms on that. So that entire corner will be developed, and the Airstream, I'm happy to say, finally has a home. It will be utilized in this project. But there would be a huge outdoor patio space and event space and everything like that. I am a little bit late getting this project in front of you. I think I filed it back in December, and you may or may not know what was going on for me in December, but I've never had an undertaking where I was on both sides of the transaction like I was for Hatch, nor have I ever had an undertaking that sucked away so much of my time and energy. And so simply, it was a situation where I had been before this body with that particular building on a very similar development at one point in time. You might remember I was in front of you on TXMZ, came back in front of you to cancel that project out. The developer and I just were never able to really make that work, a failure to launch situation. And so there may have been a little bit of assumption on my part that the timing wasn't as relevant as it probably was. So I apologize to the council for that, but glad to stand for questions.
Trustees, questions?
The plan that you submitted in the packet, does that include the yard you're talking about?
Partial. You can see that picture has a patio coming off at grade. That building is 4.5 foot above the center line of the road, so it's substantially above grade on the interior. So that patio comes off on that west side, and the ramps, and then you can kind of see it where it just kind of disappears into nothingness. That nothingness is the yard.
Okay.
And so she gave me a sketch last week, actually, that showed that yard completely programmed. We've been talking about it for a while, but until that sketch, I hadn't actually seen what that looked like. But it will now go all the way out to that sidewalk that runs parallel to Husband Street.
Can you share with us what that extension's going to be? What's going to be
Yeah,
there?
so she's got a little area for cornhole. The ramps and everything still go down to get to grade, and that tree is protected because it's pretty integral for me, actually, and will be, I think, for her patio eventually. The Airstream is placed, if I remember correctly, parallel to the sidewalk, and it will service as an outdoor service bar, so you'll be able to get drinks out of it. You don't know the history of that Airstream, but those who know me know that Airstream is a project of mine that's been looking for a home for a little while.
I've seen it mobile around town many times.
Yeah, I just keep moving it from one vacant structure to the next in the hope that it will grow. And here we are. I think we finally planted it in the right place. But she's got more tables down there, and in her words, more of a beer garden atmosphere. Of course, it's a full-service restaurant, so it's family-friendly, but just an outdoor entertainment space.
Will the floor level be about the same level as Stone Cloud? Because Stone Cloud's quite a ways above grade also.
It is. So the floor level on the interior of the structure, no, will be a lot higher than Stone Cloud. And the patio that's built onto it will be much higher than Stone Cloud. The yard itself will remain at grade, and it'll be at the same grade as Stone Cloud.
So you'll have ramps or stairs or something to get down there then?
Yeah, those ramps and stairs that kind of disappear into nothingness, they are disappearing to the yard that will be at grade with the sidewalk and Stone Cloud.
Is there a service window into the Stone Cloud?
You know,
Courtyard?
despite my pushing very, very hard for it, no. And we all tried, and it really was just a function of how the space got designed. I think, and I've told Rachel this, Empire Slice is owned by Rachel Cope. I think that was a miss on her part, but she said, I'm kind of interested in using drone delivery, so we may just fly drones with pizza over there. And I think she's actually serious. And she's a very creative entrepreneur, and so she has promised me that she will find a way to get pizza over there. But the way that, and I've been in the space recently, the way it's laid out is the bathrooms and the bar are actually on the north wall. So and the kitchen is more towards the south and east. So there just really was not a convenient way to get there. And the problem with grade. The floor at Empire would be a reach up for the backyard of Stone Cloud.
They'd have to build a platform or something back there.
Yeah.
A dumbwaiter.
Well, okay.
Previously, these projects, Stone Cloud, Hatch, and Roundhouse, and TXMZ have all been considered major redevelopments under the TIF, and I had asked for that on this one, and I don't know. I think there is there's new membership on the TIF review committee, and I also think that there's it's an evolving document, and so I think there were some questions as to whether it qualified as it under what, and so I was involved in the applications, of course, for the first three, and where I stand, and that's why I asked for what I asked for, but that's also why the TIF review committee awarded what they awarded. And so you'll notice that there's a discrepancy between those two numbers. The discrepancy comes from whether or not it was a major redevelopment and qualifies or not. And so ultimately, I think this body decides that. And so my formal request is for what I applied for, but I also understand that the body is taking those things in a different direction. I will say also, it would be helpful from a developer standpoint if we are changing what those things look like. Everybody is aware on the front end, because I'm also, again, made some assumptions in my capital arrangement based on what we have done historically. And so, there's no upfront funding for TIF anymore at all. So I have to come up with all of the funding for these things ahead of time. And TIF funding is not something that any financial institution will lend on until you get into a major situation, in which case they will lend on it, but they take about 45% of it. No doubt. And so I haven't done any of that, but what this money allows me to do is to suppress the rent rate to make it attractive to operators that are unfamiliar with Stillwater, who, as we've discussed previously, doesn't always pop very well on paper. We have one of the lowest median income or household incomes in the state because we have about 20,000 kids who just don't show up on our income statement, and that skews our numbers downward. But regardless, as a developer, whenever I go talk to an operator, they all say the same thing. Well, I understand what you're telling me, but that doesn't track with what I'm seeing on paper. So there's an explanation for why I've asked for it to be a major development, how it fits into the timeliness overall, and glad to, again, answer any questions to clarify that too.
Trustees, further questions?
Thank you.
Thanks, Corey. One quick question. When's this going to be open?
We're trying to get a fire line across the street currently, and that's going to have some impact. Parking is going to have some impact, but her date is, I think, mid-May. I've tried to push her to get there before graduation. On the other hand, as somebody who just opened one of these, it might not be a good idea to open right around graduation. So it may be a post-graduation.
Great, thank you.
I can provide you a few other details just on the process. The TIF committee, Implementation Policy Guide Committee, met on January 8th and January 29th, 2024 to review this application from Progressive Development. And as I stated before, the application was for the $450,000, which is funding in arrears, as there is no more upfront funding available for these projects. And the committee voted 5-1 with one abstention to approve the project for 18%, which is what they were considering a general project improvement category. So it's has a 12% limit plus a 6% kicker, and they voted for including that 6% additional increase to the project. So the general project improvement category in the implementation policy guide specifies that percentage of assistance be applied to the hard construction cost. So in this instance, the hard construction cost of $1.4 million, that 18% would be $252,000. There was discussion of that being applied to the total development cost, but the final motion that was made, in the discussion of the committee, $395,000 was a number that was discussed, but when it came to the final motion, it was the 18% is what they voted to approve.
And that's based on the designation of it not being a significant, rather versus being a significant improvement.
Yep. And then I think I also included in the packet a chart just kind of showing, this was helpful for my own exercise, that almost every TIF project that's been brought to the committee, Everyman, Campus Corner Creamery, Hatch, Stone Cloud, TXMZ were considered as significant impact projects, even though they were under that $4 million threshold. And in the project plan, it states clearly that it's under over 4 million or meets multiple objectives of the project plan. So
Was there any discussion about why the redevelopment as the TXMZ was considered major and not the redevelopment in the same location?
I think Corey hit on it some, that there's a new staff, or there's some new members to the TIF committee that felt like this project needed to be considered as general improvement. That was raised, Vice Mayor.
Well, I mean, I will say a couple things about this, you know, and the significant impact projects. You know, certainly over the life of this TIF, not everything's always going to be a significant impact. And I think certainly the stuff that the earlier it happened, the more significant it was, or the more significant it was going to be. I think for this, and so I would say we definitely need to address the fact that not everything forever is going to be significant impact. I do agree, though, with what the developer said about we need to, if we're going to change that, we're going to have to change that before people actually are applying for things. It needs to be discussed ahead of time, especially on a project like this where the exact same building was previously approved as a significant impact. And I think, I mean, there are several, certainly the expansion of downtown, you know, with the construction happening on Block 34, this being in close proximity to that, you know, the continued development of really a whole new downtown area that has not been, as Corey said, I mean, none of those buildings have ever generated any tax money for our community, and those are all, I think, significant. So I would certainly be in favor of treating this the same way TXMZ was going to be treated in this facility. But I also would say we need to address with the committee and with the project plan how we're going to define that significant project as we go forward. Because, yeah, I mean, just by the nature of the TIF, as it continues to grow, each new project is less significant than the ones that came before it. I mean, that's just part of the deal. So I would be in favor of reaching a development agreement that treats this as a significant impact project.
If I may, I just want to let council know that we have already started the discussion about doing a new implementation guide with the attorney group that we have worked with this TIF. So we've already begun that process.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, the discussion, the implementation policy guide committee aligns with what you were saying. Sure. And we've it's a goal to update our implementation policy guide.
I mean, all of us that have been involved in this TIF discussion for, I mean, going on 6 years when we first started talking about it, you know, the world has changed so much, and you know, we thought that we might get like one huge project at the very beginning, and then we've ended up with several smaller but no less impactful projects that have come out of it. I mean, I think no one can look at downtown Stillwater and say this hasn't had a huge impact on our ability to attract these kinds of places. We would not have Hatch, we would not have Empire Slice, we wouldn't have Stone Cloud, we wouldn't have Everyman, the EM space without this. But it changes and evolves over time, so we need to make sure we're trying to keep up with how it should be applied. So for the perspective of this project, what do you need to recommend to us, Brady?
Well, as a practice that we've done in the past, it would be guidance for the amount of assistance and the willingness to commit the 2 pennies of undedicated sales tax to the project. And then the motion tonight is to authorize staff to work with the developer to finalize a term sheet that we would bring back to you.
Trustees, further questions, comments?
So just to be clear, because we do have a recommendation from the Implementation Policy Committee, if the trustees do want to proceed in a different direction, you'll need to direct staff. Right now, the recommendation was to award the the maximum amount, the 18% for general project improvements. If you certainly want to find that this meets the criteria for significant impact development, you'll need to make that motion and second this evening so that staff can proceed with that financing, which the main difference there is that the award is applied to total development costs rather than just hard construction costs. Thanks.
Do we need more information, financial, like in front of us to make that type of motion, or are we comfortable?
I mean, the project itself supports the TIF funding. It's just a matter of how much, what percentage of that we're willing to contribute back to the project.
Right.
Right. I mean, it supports the 21% finding. It just,
Yeah. And as you,
I guess, do we have, I guess we have it in our packet,
Yeah.
but the total, if the difference is it's being applied instead of just to construction, it's being applied to
the total
development. So can you share, do you have those numbers in
Yes,
front of you?
I can. Thank you. So the 18%, if we keep it at that percent that the policy committee recommended, and it applied it to total development costs, that would be $395,500. If it was 22%, the full max amount, it would be $483,000. But again, the developers asked for $450,000 of assistance, which falls in between those. It's about 20%.
So, yeah. So, okay, but just clarify for me. If it's treated as a significant impact project, let's just say as it was before, at least from your sheet, it shows that TXMZ was approved for 19.5% of a total development cost of 1.7. Correct?
That's correct.
These percentages are all sort of different. I mean, it's clearly not
Correct.
set by a formula.
That's correct.
Are they set that way? They were set that way because of I assume, the requests and the actual dollar figures that worked out and all that
Correct.
sort of thing, right? Okay.
Yep. And so that's exactly right, Mayor. So when those requests came in, and those just happened to be the amounts that were awarded, in order to get those amounts, they had to be considered as significant impact because they were more than the 12%. And they both applied to all of those previously that are on that chart, applied to total development cost. None of those were factors of just the hard construction cost.
But the plan would allow us to apply it to either of those numbers, and it would allow us to apply a percentage somewhere between 12 and 22.
Yes, the project plan gives all authority to the seat of trustees first for whatever decision you want to make. Second, it on the way the project plan is written, in each of those categories, it's up to that amount. So you have anywhere below 12% plus the 6% kicker on general project improvements, or the 22% plus 6% kicker for any project that is considered significant impact.
And the committee recommended
18%.
18% of hard construction costs, which is a total of
$252,000.
Okay.
And if we apply it to total construction, it's $395,000.
And so to get to the requested number, you'd have to up the percentage as well as apply it to.
It'd be 20%.
I got you.
Mayor, I agree with you that changing this kind of in the midst of an application seems really challenging. Listening to the developer talk about that, I think that's something for us. If we want people to continue to use this tool, I think we need to kind of honor our commitments and be really transparent with that. So but I also don't feel like because of the way that percentage is determined and not sitting down with the TIF committee to kind of understand exactly their thought process, my initial thought is that we maintain their percentage of 18%, but apply it to the total development so that we're still honoring our commitment of it at that location as a significant development. And hopefully That's better.
I think that's a reasonable way to do this. I think the other option would be that we apply the same percentage that was applied to TXMZ in the first place, which was 19.5% of total development costs. Again, just based on the fact that in this case, I think it's completely reasonable that the developer would assume the same sort of deal would be available in a different restaurant coming into the spot, and so.
Mr. Williams, do you know is there very much difference in the total development costs between TXMZ and, I'm just thinking of like the significance of the actual development itself.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, TXMZ was closer to 2021, so you just had 2021 pricing.
Sure.
And they have Empire Slice has programmed the entire yard, so none of those. There's no ability to monetize that 30-foot that was previously withdrawn. So most costs are, I think she's more realistic about her build-out numbers, and having just completed one, they look real to me. And then inflation.
Sure.
And to make the council feel a little bit better, Hatch was only 14.5%. And so like of the overall scope of the project. So I appreciate anything that the council awards, but also just kind of wanted to throw that out there.
Sure.
I will also add that Corey has asked for the city through the infrastructure funds of the TIF3 to help assist in the creation of parking around that area in our public right-of-way. And so that is an item that will be going to the TIF committee at their next meeting, and ultimately to the trustees in the future as well. But that is from the infrastructure bucket, funding bucket of the TIF3 project plan budget.
Well, then I assume that wouldn't be dedicated parking to these specific businesses, but would be
Absolutely. Public parking,
which we need to create more of no matter what. So.
Yep.
The implementation policy guide does state, these developments may be eligible for more than one category, and so the trustees may choose the one that's most beneficial. And by the applications itself for the financing, you can find that this one meets the criteria for the significant impact development because it generates new employment and meets multiple plan objectives just on the face of the application itself, if that's helpful, Counselor. Trustees.
What do you guys want to do?
So if I make a motion. So if we want to modify the recommendation of the TIF committee, we would, what do I need to include
So
in that
an example for a motion would be motion to award significant impact development assistance in the amount of, you can say the percentage, and that would be applied to the total development costs. And by making that motion, you would also direct staff and council to bring back, to negotiate terms of a redevelopment agreement. The redevelopment agreement would then come back for final approval.
You got that?
I think I tracked all that. You might have to help me. So I would like to make a motion to award significant development.
Significant impact.
Significant impact development to the project at the TIF committee's recommended percentage of 18%.
Applied to total development
Applied
costs
to the total
because of the
development
category
costs
of
because of the
financing.
category of financing.
And direct staff and
direct
council
staff and
to negotiate a
council
redevelopment agreement.
To negotiate a redevelopment agreement.
It's a beautiful motion.
Thank you.
I will second that motion. Oh, I keep moving and seconding things, and I forget that I'm the one that's actually, running the meeting.
I'll second that.
I would second.
Well, I mean, I can second it, but we'll take Counselor or Trustee Harden's second on this motion. Now that we have a motion and a second, please vote. With a vote of 4-0, that motion is approved, and we will look forward to seeing a redevelopment agreement and trying some pizza. Thank you. All right, that takes us to the end of this agenda, unless there are any reports from the officers of the board. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Before we do, I'd like to make one comment about this redevelopment. You talked about the early TIF was hoping to get one big project. I'm looking here at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 projects that total over $10 million. And diversification is not a bad thing, so I still think this is a good idea.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Agreed. Thank
That's
you.
my piece.
Do you have a motion to adjourn?
I have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Sita, please vote. With a vote of 4-0, that is approved, and we are adjourned. At this time,